this Thursday edition of Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program Focal Point. The network is AFR Talk. Next week, by the way, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, our annual fall share-a-thon. And we need volunteers to come help us man the phones. It's one of my favorite times of the year because it gives me an opportunity to meet some of the volunteers that are also listeners. It's great for me. I just enjoy that. And it's a tremendous delight to see the people who care so much about keeping the voice of AFR on the air, that they're willing to come and man the phones and process the donations that people want to make to keep this voice on the air. And we are so grateful for your generosity, because of your generosity, because you've been so receptive and so responsive when we do this. We only have to do this twice a year. We just need to take 6 days a year, 3 in the fall, 3 in the spring, and make it clear what our financial need is and ask you to partner with us in doing that. And because you have been so generous and so responsive, we only have to do this. I mean, you had a lot of nonprofit organizations, and they are constantly hammering you for donations. We don't have to do that, and that's because of you. Because you believe in our mission, you believe in what we do, you support to keep this voice and this mission going forward. Cannot tell you how much we appreciate that. And this fall, next week is our fall share-a-thon, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we'd love to have you come here to Tupelo, to our headquarters, and man the phones. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you can pick the shift that's the most convenient for you. You can give 2 hours on one day, or you can stay all day for all 3 days. It's up to you. Some people come from as far away as Kansas in order to be a part of this. Other people come from just down the street. So we'd love to have you here. If you would like to help us out, you can call Deanna at 800-FAMILIES, 1-800-FAMILIES, and her extension is 204. So call Deanna at 1-800-FAMILIES, extension 204, or you can go to afr.net. Now, one other thing, just a follow-up on our time in the Word at the very top of the program. Jesus says in John 7, I have not come of my own accord. He who sent me is true, and him you do not know. I know him, for I come from him, and he sent me. Now, this just teed off the political leaders because they thought they were wired into God. They were dialed into God. They spoke for God. And here Jesus, they don't even know him. I came from him, and therefore I know for a fact that you don't know him or anything about him. And that just teed them off. So it says in verse 30, they were seeking to arrest him, but no one laid a hand on him because his hour had not yet come. And I think it was Augustine that said, man is immortal until his work on earth is done. If God's got a mission for you to accomplish, you are immortal until you have carried out the work that God has assigned you to do. Nobody can touch you until whatever the purpose is that he has for your life has been served. And that's one of the things that frees us up to move forward with confidence and boldness, knowing that we are immortal until our work on earth is done. Now, got some interesting stuff, developments on this Libyan deal. I talked with you about this yesterday, making the point that the Obama administration knew within 24 hours that the attack on the Libyan consulate was an al-Qaeda operation. It was a military-style operation. It was not a spontaneous reaction to some movie. They knew within 24 hours. I'm looking at a story right here on Fox News. I just called it up, that sources within the administration are now confirming that that is true. Here's how the story begins. U.S. intelligence officials knew within 24 hours of the assault on the U.S. consulate in Libya that it was a terrorist attack and suspected al-Qaeda-tied elements were involved, although it took a week for the administration to acknowledge it. Now, maybe this is why it took President Obama 5 days to figure this out. Remember, he's in the habit of skipping those intelligence briefings. And he skipped the one the day after this attack happened. Remember that? He skipped it to go to Las Vegas for some glitzy fundraiser. I think that was the one with Jay-Z and Beyonce. Well, maybe that was the day after that. But he was in Vegas, and he skipped his daily intelligence briefing the day, if you can believe it, the day after our embassy was attacked in Egypt and our consulate was attacked in Libya and 4 people were murdered in Libya, rather than staying home and debriefing with his intelligence team and managing that crisis, he flew off to Las Vegas and he's kind of palling around. He's got a dead ambassador, 3 dead former Navy SEALs, I think all 3 of them were, and he's off bouncing around Las Vegas. And it certainly, I don't want to accuse him of this, but I'm telling you from the outside, it looks like this is a president who just does not care. I mean, the Democrats are trying to paint the picture that Romney is the one that's out of touch. Romney's the one that's a cold fish. Romney's the one that doesn't care about the poor. Romney doesn't care about anybody. And I want to suggest to you, it's just frankly hard for me to detect much compassion from this president. I mean, in reality, this ambassador in Libya was vulnerable because of the failure of the State Department to take any sort of measures. There had been 3 prior attacks on Western agencies or facilities in Libya in the months leading up to that attack on the consulate. They knew that Islamic fundamentalists were targeting Western sites in Libya. They knew that. 3 or 4 times it had happened. And we know from the journal that CNN found, I mean, that's a crime scene where this man was murdered and brutalized and dragged through the streets. That's a crime scene. That still has not been secured. FBI is not even in Benghazi. I guess they've landed in Tripoli, but they can't get to Benghazi, and we're not even told why. I mean, my deal is, hey, as our ambassador, it happened on sovereign American soil. Why are we asking permission to get our FBI there to figure out what went on? We shouldn't be asking permission. We should be telling people what we are going to do. So again, you know what that projects to the world is how weak we are. How we can. It's like a big giant dog that gets pushed around by a little kitty cat. You know, the dog could squash that kitty cat with one swipe of his paw, but doesn't seem to realize it or is intimidated or something, and gets pushed around by something that's just infinitesimally small. And that's like what's happening. So it projects to the Muslim world that the United States is weak. We didn't provide any kind of security for the ambassador. That's on Hillary Clinton. There wasn't a single solitary Marine in the country of Libya when this man was murdered. I mean, that's inexcusable to me, and somebody ought to answer to that, because this is not property damage. This is a man's life. Family left without a husband and father. The other 3 men, I don't know about their families, but there got to be people that loved them. Huge hole been punched in their lives right now, and it just seems like this president and his administration doesn't even care. They don't even have the FBI on site. That site has not even been secured as a crime scene. What good is it going to be now? And the only reason that CNN got a hold of that journal that was written by the ambassador that indicated he was afraid, he had genuine security concerns in the week leading up to the assault, is that there was nobody there to secure that crime scene. We had nobody there. There were no U.S. personnel there to protect that site, to seize evidence, to protect intelligence. It was an intelligence disaster because there was a lot of very sensitive information that was boosted from that consulate before it was burned to the ground. And yet nobody was there to guard it, so CNN reporter could just waltz right in there and pick it up because nobody was there. I mean, it's just the security lapses here are just kind of beyond belief. I mean, it gets to the point, really, frankly, of criminal irresponsibility. But back to the Fox News story, 2 senior U.S. officials said that the Obama administration internally labeled the attack terrorism from the first day in order to unlock and mobilize certain resources to respond, and that officials were looking for one specific suspect. The officials said the intelligence community knew by September 11, remember that's the next day because it happened on September 11 and designed to correspond with the anniversary of 9/11, they knew that the militant Ansar al-Sharia and al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb were likely behind the strike. Further, an official said, quote, no one believed that the mortars, indirect and direct fire, and the RPGs were just the work of a mob. No one. Nobody. So within 24 hours, The Obama administration was dialed in on this deal. They knew this was the work of a jihadist group that was connected to al-Qaeda. They knew this wasn't some kind of a spontaneous deal in reaction to some movie that nobody had ever seen. They knew that. And yet remember, 5 days later, they trotted Susan Rice out. She went on all of the Sunday morning talk shows. Oh, this was just a violent reaction, spontaneous reaction to this film. It's all the filmmaker's fault. He's the one to blame. If he hadn't made this incendiary, inflammatory movie, none of this would have happened. So, and even 3 days later, the CIA director, David Petraeus, told the House Intelligence Committee that Benghazi was an out-of-control demonstration prompted by the YouTube video. And this is the House Intelligence Committee. So these people had seen some of the internal confidential information. They were entitled to it because they're on the Intelligence Committee, that made it very clear that this wasn't some kind of random, spontaneous mob attack, but it was deliberately planned. It was a military-style attack. We have eyewitnesses saying, look, there were no demonstrations outside that consulate. This just popped up out of nowhere. Then we found out, I talked about this yesterday, that our administration was depending on the Muslim Brotherhood, criminally depending on the Muslim Brotherhood to provide security for the consulate. And the Muslim Brotherhood got a signal from a Libyan diplomat, Libyan official, stand down, we're coming in. And so the very people we were paying, I assume, to provide security were in the bag for the jihadists. And when they got the signal, they just stepped aside and let this military attack proceed. So this is, this is horrendous stuff. And the more you find out about it, the worse this thing looks. And it's going to be critical that we get some answers and get to the bottom of this. And, this is one of the things, by the way, that people have got to take into consideration when they go to the polls on November 6th. I mean, you've got sanctity of life. You've got sanctity of marriage. You have a budget that's out of control. You also have pretty profound issues of America's national security that are at stake. And, people that are looking at this information objectively may be inclined to think, I think maybe we need to get somebody, we got to get somebody different on the bridge of this particular ship because it's heading toward an iceberg. You're listening to Focal Point, AFR Talk. Back with more. Stay with us.